Ever feel like you're stuck in a broken record? Different day, same drama. New job, same toxic boss. New relationship, same heartbreak. You're not crazy, and you're not cursed. According to Carl Jung, one of psychology's greatest minds, there's a deeper reason why we keep magnetizing identical problems into our lives. Today, we're diving into Jung's revolutionary insights that will completely change how you see your recurring challenges. Let's start with Jung's most powerful concept, your shadow self. This isn't some mystical idea. It's the collection of traits, emotions, and aspects of yourself that you've pushed into the unconscious because they feel unacceptable. Here's the kicker. Whatever you refuse to acknowledge within yourself, you'll unconsciously attract in your external world. That person who always triggers you, they're likely reflecting a disowned part of your own psyche back at you. But it goes deeper than just the shadow. Jung discovered that we all carry what he called complexes. These are like autonomous psychological programs running in the background of your mind. Think of them as emotional software that automatically responds to certain triggers. If you have an abandonment complex, you'll unconsciously create situations where people leave you, not because you want them to, but because your psyche is trying to resolve this deep pattern. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Projection. We literally project our internal world onto our external reality. That boss you can't stand, that friend who always disappoints you, often, they're carrying the projection of something you haven't accepted about yourself. Jung said we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. This is why Jung called life's challenges part of the individuation process, your psyche's relentless drive toward wholeness. Every repeated problem is actually your unconscious mind's way of saying, hey, pay attention to this. You need to integrate this aspect of yourself. The universe isn't punishing you, it's trying to make you whole. If this is resonating with you, and you're starting to see your problems in a completely new light, do me a favor, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments what pattern you're recognizing in your own life. Your insight might help someone else break free from their cycle. Jung also identified universal patterns he called archetypes that can trap us in repetitive roles. Maybe you're always the rescuer, the victim, or the rebel. These archetypal patterns feel familiar because they're deeply embedded in the human psyche, but they can also become psychological prisons that generate the same problems over and over. There's also what Jung called the compensation principle. If you're living too one-sidedly, maybe you're overly rational and ignore your emotions, or you're a people pleaser who never sets boundaries, your unconscious will create problems that force you to develop the neglected parts of yourself. That's why the super-organized person keeps attracting chaos, or why the eternal optimist keeps facing harsh realities. Many of our repetitive patterns stem from what Jung called parental complexes. The template of how we related to our early caregivers becomes the unconscious blueprint for how we navigate adult relationships. If you had an absent father, you might keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners. If you had an overbearing mother, you might keep finding yourself in controlling relationships. Jung also talked about the Anima and Animus, the inner feminine and masculine aspects within each of us. When these aren't integrated, we project them onto others, creating relationship dynamics that repeat until we recognize and reclaim these parts of ourselves. The man who's disconnected from his emotional side will keep attracting dramatic women. The woman who's disconnected from her inner strength will keep attracting domineering men. Now here's where Jung's concept of synchronicity becomes crucial. He noticed that meaningful coincidences often cluster around important psychological developments. When you keep encountering the same type of problem, it's not random, it's your psyche's way of communicating through the language of experience. These patterns are invitations to wake up and integrate what you've been avoiding. Let me give you some real-world examples to make this crystal clear. Sarah keeps dating emotionally unavailable men. Traditional advice tells her to choose better, but Jung would ask, what part of Sarah is emotionally unavailable? Maybe she's terrified of true intimacy herself, so she unconsciously seeks partners who won't demand emotional depth. Her type isn't really about them, it's about maintaining her psychological comfort zone. Or consider Mark, who keeps getting passed over for promotions despite his talent. He complains about office politics, but Jung would explore Mark's relationship with his own power. Does Mark unconsciously believe he doesn't deserve success? Is he sabotaging himself to avoid the responsibility that comes with leadership? The external rejection might be reflecting his internal rejection of his own potential. This is where Jung's concept of the personal unconscious becomes crucial. Unlike Freud's focus on repressed sexuality, Jung saw the unconscious as containing everything we've forgotten, repressed, or never fully developed. Your recurring problems are like messengers from this hidden realm, trying to deliver important information about your psychological development. Jung also distinguished between the personal unconscious and what he called the collective unconscious, the deeper layer containing universal human experiences and archetypal patterns. This is why certain problems feel so familiar and compelling. They're not just personal, they're tapping into ancient human themes of love, power, death, rebirth, and transformation. Jung identified 4 stages we go through when confronting these patterns. First is unconscious incompetence. We don't even know we have a pattern. We're just living our lives, wondering why the same things keep happening. Sarah thinks she's just unlucky in love. Second is conscious incompetence. We start to see the pattern but feel powerless to change it. Sarah realizes she always picks the same type of guy but doesn't understand why or how to stop. This stage can be frustrating because awareness without power feels like torture. Third is conscious competence. We understand the pattern and can sometimes choose differently, but it requires constant vigilance. Sarah recognizes her pattern and can now spot red flags, but she has to consciously fight her old programming. Fourth is unconscious competence. The new pattern becomes natural. Sarah has integrated her shadow around intimacy and now naturally attracts and is attracted to emotionally available partners. The work has become part of her being. Jung believed dreams were the royal road to understanding these patterns. Your dreams often dramatize the very conflicts you're living out in waking life. That recurring dream about being chased, it might represent what you're running from in your psychological development. The dream where you're unprepared for an exam. It could reflect your fear of being found out or your resistance to testing yourself in new ways. Active imagination takes this further. Jung developed this technique where you consciously engage with images, figures, or scenarios from your unconscious. If you keep attracting critical people, you might imagine a dialogue with your inner critic. What does this figure want? What is it trying to protect you from? Often, these inner figures have wisdom to offer once we stop fighting them. Here's something most people miss about shadow work. Your shadow isn't just negative traits. Jung said the shadow contains everything that doesn't fit your conscious self-image, including positive qualities you've disowned. Maybe you were taught that anger is bad, so you've repressed your healthy assertiveness. Now you keep attracting aggressive people who express the anger you won't own. Or perhaps you learned that being too smart made others uncomfortable, so you've hidden your brilliance. Now you keep attracting situations where you feel intellectually frustrated or overlooked. The shadow can contain your gold as much as your garbage. Modern neuroscience actually supports Jung's insights about pattern change. Your brain has literally wired itself to respond automatically to certain triggers. When you encounter a situation that reminds your unconscious of past trauma or unresolved conflicts, your neural pathways fire in the same old patterns. This is why you can intellectually understand your problems but still feel emotionally hijacked by them. The good news is that neuroplasticity means these patterns can be rewired. Every time you consciously choose a different response, you're literally building new neural pathways. The key is repetition and emotional engagement. You can't just think your way out of these patterns, you have to feel and act your way out. Jung saw individuation as the central task of human life, becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. This process inevitably involves confronting the parts of yourself you've rejected or ignored. Your recurring problems are actually invitations to reclaim these disowned aspects. This is why Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The person who always triggers you is showing you something about your own psyche. A situation that always frustrates you is pointing to an area where you need to grow. Beyond active imagination, Jung developed several practical techniques for working with these patterns. One is called owning your projections. When someone really bothers you, ask yourself, how am I like this person? This isn't about self-blame, it's about reclaiming your projections. Another technique is dialoguing with symptoms. If you keep attracting financial problems, you might imagine a conversation with your relationship to money. What would your inner spender or inner hoarder say? Often these parts have valid concerns that need to be addressed consciously. Jung also emphasized the importance of holding the tension of opposites. Instead of trying to resolve conflicts quickly, sit with the discomfort of contradictory feelings or desires. This tension is where psychological growth happens. So how do you break free? Jung's answer was active imagination and shadow work. You need to consciously engage with these unconscious patterns. Start by asking yourself, what am I not seeing about myself in this situation? Look for the common thread in your problems. What role are you unconsciously playing? What aspect of yourself are you projecting onto others? The goal isn't to eliminate problems, it's to transform unconscious reactions into conscious responses. When you can see the pattern, you can choose differently. When you own your projections, you stop being a victim of them. When you integrate your shadow, you stop attracting it in others. Remember, this work takes time and patience. You're literally rewiring patterns that may have been running for decades. Be compassionate with yourself as you navigate this process. Each time you catch yourself in an old pattern, celebrate the awareness. That's the first step toward freedom. Jung's insights offer a radical shift. Your problems aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. They're your psyche's way of guiding you toward wholeness. If this video has opened your eyes to a pattern you've been stuck in, please share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're going deep into psychology's most transformative ideas every week. Remember, awareness is the first step toward freedom. Until next time, keep integrating.